program. And for a geographical kind of visual of where we're located, we're up there in Powell River on the upper Sunshine Coast. So we're waterlocked. We need to take 2 ferries in order to get to the mainland. So transporting waste to the landfill or recycling down to recycling facilities is quite tricky for us and also costs quite a lot. And our trash trail is, we have a transfer station in Powell River at Augusta Recyclers, and our trash then gets barged to Richmond and then trucked to Surrey and then jumps on a train down to Rabanco, Washington. So some of our initiatives are the Compost Education Center, and we do public outreach and engagement, and what some of that looks like is publications in local magazines as well as our local newspaper, trying to engage folks in a various means. And we also have a radio show on our community radio station, and then we are often out tabling at events, trying to engage people at different festivals or community events. And we have some social media outlets to try and engage people as well, having the info tables and then a website, as well as Facebook, and then, as I mentioned, the radio program. And we also have been trying to be pretty active with zero waste stations and getting waste diversion happening at events, and helping with event coordinators, engaging them in zero waste initiatives and helping them to make their event zero waste. And we engage a lot with the school district here, and we put out a Wastewise Guide calendar that we'll show you. So this is a cover of this year's calendar, and our May month featured composting, and Bert Baillie, who is here with us today to help during the question period, and he's the innovator of the freezer composter there. And some of our work with the school district in terms of composting, we have a Sustainable Schools Committee here in Powell River who has been very active in getting critter-proof composters implemented at the schools. So right now, of the 9 schools, we have 8 that are composting. And last year, a really cool program that happened was with the Vancouver Island Culinary Arts Program, which is run out of our Brooks High School. And in 4 months, we were able to divert 2,500 pounds of organics. And this year, with some active teacher leaders, we're doing a school-wide program. So not only with the Culinary Arts Program, but in the school cafeteria and then just in classrooms. And it's another 4-month program. So we're excited to see the waste diversion numbers from that and hopefully get a bigger composting unit at that school so that they could do it on site. As of right now, how the composting is happening is we've engaged 2 local farmers who come weekly to take the food scraps away from the school. And we also do in-class presentations and offer free field trips to our Compost Education Center. So this was an article last year with the Culinary Arts Program, and in there we have one Let's Talk Trash team member, Ty, and then holding the buckets, the 2 older folks, those are our farmers. Another interesting thing in terms of composting we've done is with waste audits. We found we audited 16 local businesses and offered them each specific recommendations as well as general recommendations from our findings. And our findings were that 92% of the waste that we received was actually divertible, most of which was compostable. And then we did see the double bagging phenomenon where a garbage bag is then put into another garbage bag by janitorial staff. So we were trying to work on having them just empty the garbage bags instead of the double bagging. And a huge portion of what we found in the trash was bathroom hand towels. And so we've been trying to get folks making a separate container in their bathrooms so that they can compost the paper hand towels and tissues. And one concern with this has become the transferring of parasites, bacteria, and viruses. So we're trying to work with people and engaging them in getting the freezer composters, which are reaching higher temperatures more easily, and monitoring them with composting thermometers to try to get them over the 160-degree Fahrenheit threshold, which kills most of those little critters. And alternatively, we've been mentioning to schools that if they leave their compost to sit for about 2 years, that in that time frame, if they are not confident that they've reached those temperatures, that having the compost sit for that period of time without these viruses to have a host that they would have then died off. So we're working on that, and if anyone has any like scientific or academic papers backing this claim up to help people feel more confident in composting these products, we would appreciate any of that literature. And in Powell River, as we don't have a municipal composting facility, we've been needing to make a lot of partnerships happen in our community for diverting compostables. So a lot of the restaurants have either started composting using a freezer composter or have engaged with local farmers to come and pick up their organics. Coffee shops have all of them in Powell River, which is 4, all have their coffee grounds ready for keen people to take away. Tim Hortons in particular has made it really easy. They put their coffee grounds out in an enclosed wooded area into Rubbermaid containers, which is unlocked kind of little enclosed area, and you can just go in, take the Rubbermaids, and bring them home and then bring them back empty when you're finished with them. And at the high school and VIU, they're able to compost due to partnerships with the farmers. Our hospital and Olive DeVoe, which is an elderly care facility, has engaged another group of local farmers to take their compostables away. Our local newspaper, as a result of the waste audits, now separates their paper hand towels, and a farmer comes by, a warm farmer, every Friday to pick those up. And local farmers are taking from one of our grocery stores, so they have no wasted food scraps. 75% of our waste vegetable oil in our community is being picked up by keen people, such as myself, for use as car fuel. And then with seasonal events such as Halloween, we have like a pumpkin smash up where we collect the old pumpkins and then engage local composters and farmers to help us take care of those. And now I'm going to pass the phone over to Inger-Lise, who's going to tell us about our Compost Education Center and get a little bit more in-depth into the freezer composter.
I think you got to turn the internal thing on.
No, I did.
Hi there, my name is Inger-Lise, and I have the privilege to be working closely with a lot of amazing composters in our community. And as you can see from our slide here, our Compost Education Center was originally inspired by a visit to another Compost Education Center in a neighboring community. And we've modeled ourselves after them in that we have now situated our Compost Education Center within a community garden. It's centrally located within our small town. I don't know if we mentioned our population, which is around 20,000. And there's a community resource center. And the community gardens are located just behind there. Within the community, the Compost Education Center, there are 7 different forms of composting systems that are on site. They're all actively maintained. And we found that this has been a key to the success of our program, to have people contracted to maintain the site, to give a good first impression to those people who visit, keeping odors, pleasant and everything just clean, and keeping contaminants out of the system. And we're particularly blessed to have 2 amazing people working with us. Bert Baillie is one of them, and along with another gentleman who is a client of the Community Resource Center. The different systems that we have available on site there are some that could be purchased directly in a store, and others that people would be building, and we give compost workshops for many of those ones that require a little bit more education prior to starting. The actual CEC is always unlocked, and so people can take themselves on a self-guided tour, and we've put some signage up around so people can get a sense of what the composters are called and what the basic tips are for like who would be best to use which kind of system. And we also do take organics from the public. It's becoming increasingly popular as a drop-off, an unofficial drop-off site, and we take organics from the kitchen at the Community Resource Center as well. We have sometimes functioned as an overflow option for festivals, which we'll be talking about in a moment. Our community is really focused on zero waste, and that includes collecting divertibles from local festivals. So we have a second freezer composter that's available for that at the actual CEC. Just going to get to the next slide here. Just one moment. So as we mentioned, the CEC is in the community gardens, and here's just a picture of the entrance at an open house we had recently, and we put on display some of our zero waste stations, which we'll talk about more in a moment. So as mentioned, we have 2 free compost workshops every month, and the compost workshops, we have a wide variety. We try to have an introduction to the basics for people who are just starting out. We try to have systems available for apartment dwellers. Our community has quite a large number of elderly people living in apartments here, and the Bokashi system has become a favorite for that part of our community. Recently, we've started to advertise the option of doing a compost health diagnosis, where we would go on site and do an assessment of any problems that people are experiencing with their composters. Vermiculture has become very popular, as I'll talk about in just a moment, and of course our converted freezer composter and the Critter Proof, which are both created by local individuals. And we do workshops on a larger scale for 3-bin and for pile composting for those who might have larger acreages, which does actually constitute a good section of our community as well, because we're in a fairly rural area. So here you see the owner of a local nursery conducting a workshop on pile composting. What we love about this is that he's doing what he would normally be doing in a regular day, turning his compost pile, and yet there's about 15 or 20 attendees to this free workshop learning about it and asking him questions at the same time. It's wonderful to introduce members of the public to the nursery itself. People often go home with starts because we do this. This is actually our next workshop in a few weeks, so right around springtime. And we've offered a new option to our hosts where instead of paying them an honorarium of $45 for the workshop, we offer advertising, free advertising along with us in the local newspaper, and that's taken off as a new idea. Here you see Carol Ingram. She's our worm bin workshop compost host. She actively engages people in the creation of the worm bed, the worm bedding, and really walks people through every step so that they have a good idea by the end of the workshop of how to create their own worm bin. She often does the actual creation of the bin itself with the drill and gets people involved in the process so that they feel empowered to be able to go home with something that they can start with pretty much right away. She also often gives away a worm bin at the end of the workshop to one lucky attendee. And as you can see from this photo, people of all ages are very interested in all these different forms of composting that are being offered. Here's a photo of one of the 2 kinds of bokashi workshops we offer. The woman hosting in the yellow here is a worker at a nursery or a gardening supply shop, and they actually do sell the bokashi kits. So they do give a discount to anyone who attends this workshop. I think it's a 30% discount if you want to go home with a kit and start right away. And as you may know, in order to do bokashi, you need a microorganism. It's often infused in wheat germ that gets sprinkled over your organics. And this is sometimes prohibitive for people within the community who can't afford that on a regular basis. So we've engaged another workshop host, Kitty Clemens, and she is a fermentation expert and a registered holistic nutritionist. And she really shows people how to do this on a budget, sharing with people how to access free buckets within the community and using whey from their yogurt containers, or if they make kombucha, how to blend up the mother mushroom and using that as the microorganisms. And hers is more of a hands-on approach. You put gloves on and get right in there. So that does appeal to other people. We have the Critter Proof, which is a local form or locally designed bear-proof composter made out of river rock and concrete. And we've had some challenges with aeration, but it's not something that's insurmountable. All of these, these have been in place at all of our elementary schools and our high school for quite some time to get the students right in there and involved in composting. And now to our showstopper, the freezer composter. And this is something we're incredibly proud of because it comes from our community, and it has really taken the ear of many people across Canada involved in composting. It has a doubly good use. One is that it's reusing something that's often unused or broken, which is the freezer, and then it puts it to use of creating a very hot composter. It's an insulated box, and so it keeps the heat within the freezer itself, and the compost is created much more quickly because of this. So Bert Baillie is the inventor of this, and as mentioned, he's available for questions at the end of our webinar here. Here's a model that he's created for us so we can go on the road with it. And it's just wonderful to show people all the parts you don't normally see. So below the soil, there's the drainage with the capture bucket. This can be above soil if you wish to access the compost tea that's created. Some people have chosen to plant something near that. That ends up being a very happy, healthy bush or tree. As you see, there's cedar slats at the bottom, and that's just cedar because, of course, it's going to last a lot longer than many other types of wood, and it allows for the leachate to pass through without clogging up the drainage. And the top right-hand corner is the air vent, a little less easy to see there. And here's an overhead shot of the same thing. You see in the right-hand corner within the box, sometimes freezers do have the compressor within the body of the freezer, and Bert has shown that you just need to accommodate for that with the cedar slats by carving out a little spot there. It's important to note that the freon contained in freezers does need to be removed by a professional. We're fortunate within our community to have a local business that is willing to do that for free or for cookies. And here are the freezer conversion plans, which Bert has generously open sourced. They're available on our website, which is letstalktrashpr.com, and we'll be showing you that website at the end as well. So this is definitely something that can be done by many people, people who are inclined towards building, have an engineer's mind, can usually take a scan at this and figure it out quite quickly. And here's another, the overhead and side view. Another gentleman who's been working alongside Bert is Brian McLaughlin, and he decided to take temperature readings of his freezer composter over a period of several weeks. And just interesting to note, it took a few days for the temperature to reach above 104, the weed-killing temperature, and that's 104 Fahrenheit, and then a few more days to get above the pathogen kill of 130 degrees Fahrenheit. And this happened in November, which is significant if you think about outdoor temperatures at that time. And he does commission freezer composters, and this one was quite lovely, and it's candy pink version, so he likes to play with it, and I'm sure the owner of this is quite proud to show it off when people come by. And I'm going to turn this back to Abby, who's going to talk a little bit more about our zero waste events.
So we've really been trying to get zero waste stations becoming the norm at big and large events. So we ended up investing in Eco Depot's system. We started off with metal cans painted, but decided to take the leap with this somewhat expensive system, but it had really great feedback. People, once they saw kind of how pretty they looked, they really wanted them at their events. And so for event support, we offer the stations in our community for free. We do require a small deposit in case of damage, and a station toolkit also comes with, which includes some gloves, aprons, hats to help identify the monitors, and some little picking tools to help decrease contamination. If monitors see something that shouldn't be in one of the bins, they can just, with kind of like barbecue type tools, tongs, grab it out without getting too messy. And we do a little consultation for anyone who's looking to loan out the stations. With we have an event guide for a zero waste guide for event planners, and so we'll go over that and a few tips we've learned from working at events, things to watch out for, and just how to be successful just through our lessons learned. And the hardest thing we've noticed is, just before I go to the next slide there, is finding a home for the compost is always the challenge with events. A lot of events often have a lot of carbon, like paper plates and paper napkins, and not so much food scraps. So a lot of backyard composters here don't necessarily want compost from events, especially from the larger events. So that's been a challenge, and we've been trying to, again, engage farmers to help us help these people. And yeah, it's because this is slightly new, and everyone that does compost somewhat differently, having station monitors is key. A lot of people come up to the stations and kind of stand there. Even though there's signs with pictures, they're still confused, a lot of people. So just having someone there to direct people, and everyone is really keen to participate and do the right thing, but having a physical person there to help engage with them, we found is you need to have, or else your contamination rates just go up, and then when people look in the bins, they kind of see a whole slew of things, and then it just kind of becomes garbage and doesn't really work. And some new project ideas we've had for Compost Awareness Week this week. Inger-Lise hosted a compost expert panel at our Compost Education Center. And right now she's working on a multi-family housing unit composting. There's a community garden at the one facility that we're engaged with, and they're looking to get 2 freezer composters in. So that is happening later this month, and that will be our first multi-unit kind of composting endeavor that we've entered into, and we're pretty excited about that. And a secondary thing we're looking at too is developing an interim kind of community freezer composter for the larger events. We do have a municipal composting facility somewhat close to us down in Seashelt on the Lower Sunshine Coast, which is called Salish Soils. It is a ferry ride and about a 45-minute drive away from us, and they were receptive last year to us, but this year it's seeming a bit difficult to engage with them in taking our compostables if it's under a ton for free, and then finding a way to transport. So we haven't got a very positive response back from them about taking our compost from larger events. We have mainly 2 large events that we have in mind. So we are trying to get a regional district to lend us some land where we can implement about 3 freezer composters that these larger events and possibly some smaller ones can put into until we hopefully get our own municipal composting facility, which we have been told is, in the works for possibly this fall. And so with that, we are open for questions, and this is our contact information as well.
And just before we get to questions, I wanted to introduce Bert Baillie, who is in the studio with us today, tell you a little bit about his background. And he's been very involved in composting within our community, originally from Ireland, and moved here, I'm not sure how long ago, but raised 4 lovely daughters here and has really been a member of the community. Has been involved in large-scale composting pilot programs, as well as has designed a sealed composter for NASA Kennedy Space Lab. And this is one that experts needed to come and consult him for up here in Powell River. They came all the way in because of their deep interest in this amazing design. And he is also responsible for creating a large-scale chipper that ended up acting as a medium for mushroom growth and mushroom harvesting. And he can tell you more of the details about that if you are curious to know. And we're just really blessed and pleased to be working alongside Bert, who often fields many questions at the Compost Education Center. He's there every day, often volunteering many hours up and above and beyond what he has been asked to do, and is just an invaluable member of this program. More and more, as we've gone afield and shared at the Compost Council of Canada's regional workshop, for example, in Vancouver in late February, when we shared the freezer composter plans, there's definitely an interest amongst people within the field, perhaps like yourselves, that haven't encountered this idea and just recognize how simple it is and applicable. It has now been included in a manual for the Northwest Territories and has been implemented in sub-zero temperatures and has been found to continue to create hot enough conditions to kill pathogens even when it's below zero outside. And we will be sharing about this again in September at the National Conference for the Compost Council of Canada, and it's a total honor to be working alongside Bert. So with that, we'll open ourselves up to any questions, and yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys very much for the webinar. And like I said, if you guys have questions, feel free to type them in or put up your hand, and I can unmute you. So I see that Mario from the city of Winnipeg has his hand up. He's had his hand up for a while, so we'll see if he has a question. Mario, do you have a question for us?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Do you have a question that you would like to ask? Hello?
Hello?
Is this Mario from the city of Winnipeg? Okay, we're going to move on. So Rebecca, also from the city of Winnipeg, is asking, do you offer backyard composter sales in the community?
I'm wondering if you're able to repeat that question for us.
Oh, you'll have to speak a little closer.
I'm wondering if you're able to repeat that question for us.
Can you repeat that one more time? The question was, do you offer backyard composters for sale in the community?
Do we offer backyard composting for?
Backyard composters for sale.
Oh, do we offer backyard composters for sale? Sorry, we're just experiencing 3 phones off the hook here and some fans in the background. So no, we're not currently offering backyard composters for sale. At one time there was somebody producing freezer composters, if that's the specific type that's been being inquired about. And the gentleman who is doing that is now not as available to do it, but there's definitely an interest within the community of Powell River to purchase ready-made freezer composters. And we're currently inquiring about subsidies that might be available to our community that are available to other communities, which I'll let Abby just share briefly about.
We have been asked on a few occasions, like why our regional district doesn't offer composting subsidies for different composters like a lot of other municipalities do, and I'd like to do a different system that I don't know that I've seen done anywhere else, where we don't pick just one type of composter to subsidize, which I've seen as the trend in a lot of other places, where it's just one specific composter that if you want it, you get it at a different subsidy, because a lot of composters are so dependent on where you live, your lifestyle, the time you're able to put into composting, and if you even want to get the compost at the end of it, like such as the green cone digester, where you just add to it, you don't need to stir or anything. So I'd like to open it up, instead of just picking one composter to subsidize, have it be some kind of fund where someone can just apply to gain some money to help subsidize a composter of their choice. But right now, yes, we don't have any subsidy program in place in Powell River. And I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think that I think maybe a lot of communities would actually see that as a problem, and so that would be a great program to maybe look into. Mm-hmm. I do have some questions about the freezer composter.
Okay.
Hi. So these are actually questions that Susan wrote down for me to ask for you. But they are, how much time does the compost stay in the freezer?
How long does it stay in the freezer?
Yeah, so what would be the incubation time, or how long, yeah.
Well, there's different methods of composting, whether it's a freezer or anything else. If you wanted to batch compost, for instance, if you fill the freezer up full of the organic waste to start with, then it would take about 2 weeks, approximately, to 3 weeks, and then you would take it out, and it will have gone through the high heat phase, which would have taken care of all the pathogens, weed seeds, etc. And for our purposes here, we have a community center that has food waste every day coming out, and we have people dropping off some food waste, so we fill it continually, and it keeps heating and heating and heating until it's full. After it's full, instead of curing it outside in a pile, we don't have the facility to do that, the area to do it, but we do have 4 bins, three of them composting and 1 for holding carbon. What we do is we use that to activate and enhance the yard waste, etc., from the community garden, and we make a larger batch of compost, and then we're able to get the freezer going again.
Okay.
Is that satisfactory?
Yeah, no. Yeah, that is very specific. So basically you just fill it until it's full, and then wait 2 to 3 weeks. Fill it until it's full, wait 2 to 3 weeks, and then put it in, take it out and cure it then for a longer time. Yeah,
once it's full, if you're filling it continuously, in other words, if a number of families are using it, and you keep filling it, it keeps shrinking and shrinking, so it takes a long time to fill it, depending on how many families are using it. And like for one family of about 5, it would probably be a year before you'd have to even empty it, Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mind you're adding carbon to the food waste. The food waste will break down rapidly, so it shrinks rapidly, and if the freezer was full, it would shrink to about 50% volume, right off the bat. So it's continually shrinking as you're adding to it until eventually it gets full. And the last stuff that you put into it would not necessarily have been in there long enough, but it would be a very small amount. So what you would do is you can take that off the top and use the rest to add to your outside compost, and use what you took off and get going again immediately if you just have the one freezer.
Yeah.
If you had two freezers, then you can alternate. But one freezer is quite sufficient, you know.
Right.
Is that plain enough? Okay?
Yeah. No, that
Okay.
makes a lot of sense.
Thank you very much.
No, there's still more. There's still lots of questions for you. The next one would be, is the interest or focus on freezer composters due to the bear issues, or is it the heating benefit?
I'm just going to keep passing the phone to Bert, but I'll relay that. If you can repeat that question for him loudly.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, another question. There's actually a few here. It would be, is there interest or focus on the freezer composters due to the bears, or is it the heating benefit?
Do you mind speaking up a little bit, please? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is the interest in the freezer composters due to the bear issue, or is it the benefit you get from heating?
Well, no. As you know, probably in our neck of the woods, we have bears all over the place. They're in town, you know, and they're all over. And we actually have one bear-proof composter here that I know of, you know. I don't know any other ones, and we have it here. Now, all manufacturers of the other composters, regardless of what they are, say that they are bear-resistant, whatever that means. But, you know, a bear could rack just about anything. But they do happen to not bother the freezers too much. And I've had one case where it damaged the lid, and I fixed it for a lady that has 3 freezer composters going. And I have 2 freezer composters in my own yard, and the bear came in and went for the garbage can, which I accidentally left out one night, and walked past the other 2 freezers. I think it's possible that there's always a latent amount of ammonia coming off the compost when it's composting at these high temperatures, and bears hate ammonia. So they may open the lid, you know, and damage it or something like that, but basically, most cases, they haven't bothered them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So it's kind of a combination of they're bear-proof, but also they get the higher heating, especially in the winter.
Yeah, when the temperature's up, and you know, it works all year round, both summer and winter. And as a matter of information, I went down to check on the freezer composter one winter morning when I had been freezing for quite a while. I couldn't get the lid open because it had froze. So I put some warm water on it, opened the lid, and it was 160 degrees inside the freezer.
Wow.
So
you wouldn't, you would just let accumulate. You would just let the materials accumulate throughout the whole winter, correct?
It's hard to hear you right now. Could you repeat that, please?
You would just let the materials accumulate throughout the winter?
Well, you just keep using it through the winter like you would through the summer. You just keep adding to it if you want, and it keeps composting.
Excellent. And just so one more question, is there any maintenance tips that you could share with us? Is there any maintenance required to? Yeah.
No, the only thing is, you know, when you set the freezer up, we usually use, you know, the roadside wood chips or a little bit of coarse material in the bottom on top of the grid on the bottom, the wooden grid. And what that does, that helps the fines. When the compost breaks down, it gets finer. That helps reduce the amount of fines that get down into the plenum. So if you're using it all year and haven't emptied it, once you empty it, if you lift the, once you completely empty it, then you lift the grid, you know, with a piece of wire or a hook, and just lift the grid sideways, clean the bottom, drop it back down, throw some more coarse material in the bottom, about 1 to 2 inches, and you're ready to go again. Did you get that?
Excellent. Yeah, that's excellent.
That's all the maintenance. And the other thing is the peel that's underneath and that collects the leachate. Many people use that now as compost tea. So you get the compost, and you can also use the compost tea.
And is there any issues with having? Is there any issues with having enough air?
Pardon?
Like providing enough aeration?
Well,
like
any compost, if it sits, it compacts, right? As it decomposes, it compacts. So you do have to turn it. And if you use an aerator, you can turn it with an aerator. Or what we do is we use a garden fork, and we mix it periodically, depending on the quantities we're putting into it, of the carbon to nitrogen mixture. And the other thing you will find that instead of, say, using a lot of straw or long material in them, if you have access to wood shavings and sawdust or anything like that as a carbon source, it makes the compost much easier to handle. But it works regardless of what you put into it.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, like the vent at the bottom is enough, provides enough air for the process then to make it
well,
aerobic?
once you open the compost up, you have created pore space in the compost. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You've created a pore space in the compost, so that will let the air in until that pore space is condensed again and packed. Then you mix it again to regenerate the pore space. And with food waste, which is very, very wet, and any compost that is very, very wet, air won't go through it. And so when you add the carbon materials, what you're doing, the dry carbon materials, what you're doing is you're reducing the moisture content of the food waste, which is about 70 to 90% water to start with, and you want to reduce it down to about 60 if possible, which is difficult sometimes. So you may find you have to turn it a little more often until you lose moisture through evaporation or through leaching. Does that answer you?
That's all the questions I have, but if there's anyone else that has any questions, we still have time. Anyone from the audience?
Will you have an audience there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we get people from across Canada to
oh, okay, sure, no problem.
It's an open invite, free webinar. If anyone wants to be added to the mailing list, they can contact me, and I can add them. So we'll give people maybe 2 more minutes here to get their questions in. But it looks like there's lots of different options.
Oh yeah, there is. There's lots of options.
Yeah, and
that's why we have several of them over at the education center. You know, because one just doesn't suit everybody. Eh? Everybody's got a different.
All right. Well, I think you're off the hook for any more questions. So once again, I'm going to thank the Let's Talk Trash team, and thank you for answering.
I'll turn this over to Abby. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Well, bye-bye.
Hi there.
Hi, Abby.
Hi.
Oh, I did get a question real quick here. From Brenda Lafort from the rural municipality of Gilbert Plains in Manitoba, and she's asking, what do you do with the compost tea?
It's a
what would you do with it?
It's a potent garden amendment. So there's many ways to make compost tea, even out of, like, say, weeds from your garden. And so a lot of times it needs, especially from the freezer composter, it's pretty high nitrogen content, so it needs to be diluted. And usually we dilute about 15 to 20 times. So if you added 1 cup of the compost tea into a watering pail, you'd add 15 to 20 times the amount of water, so 15 to 20 cups for that 1 cup of tea. And then you would go and water your garden, and acts as a fertilizer, basically. Really good food for your plants.
All right. Excellent. Okay, well, with that, I will take the opportunity to thank you for participating in our webinar series, and on behalf of Green Manitoba as well as the Composting Council. And like I said, if anyone would like to be on the mailing list that are not on the mailing list for the webinars, you can contact me. And we also have these webinars and presentations available on the compost.org site. You can find them there if you happen to miss all the information that was presented here today. All right.
Great. Thanks so much for having us.
And also thanks everyone.
Oh, sorry.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and thanks everyone for attending also as well. Okay. So bye. I will end the webinar now.